Hey y'all, it's Krypton Critics. I'm here to review Man of Steel, which came out in 2013, directed by Zack Snyder. It stars Henry Cavill as Superman, Amy Adams as Lois Lane, Michael Shannon as General Zod, Russell Crowe as Jor-El, Lawrence Fishburne as Perry White, Diane Lane as Martha Kent, Kevin Costner as Jonathan Kent, Antej Tro as Fiora, and Christopher Maloney as Coronel Hardy. Um, Now, one of the reasons I wanted to review this film is because I've had, you know, conflicts of how I view the movie with, people that I know, friends, family. And I finally wanted to bury how I feel about this movie and truly express it. And I thought video form would be the best way. So I had seen this once in the theater, and I watched it again for this review. And there was a lot of things I forgot in those 2 years since the last time I saw it, and some things I know I'm going to forget again, and that's why I wrote some of them. Now, in this film, we follow, this is expected, Superman origin, doomed planet, comes to Earth, struggles with humanity, I guess, and then he becomes a superhero and beats the bad guy's ass. That's how it goes in all the Superman origins, whether it's in cartoon form, comic form, or in film form. Now, one of the things, that, I started noticing more is that, let's go back to Krypton. So Krypton, looks very different from the Richard Donner version, the version that we saw in Superman Returns. Fine, whatever. But I don't care about the subplots that happen there. Like, there's a subplot of the power struggle, the rise of General Zod and him being imprisoned. I can understand why he's being imprisoned, but I don't feel like it needed to be all condensed in the 1 hour before everything blows up. Also, Jor-El has to get this MacGuffin that's called the Codex from a skull that was kept with a bunch of like artificially grown fetuses, kind of like the weird things in Matrix. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm like, hey, I'm not feeling the MacGuffin in this movie. It feels pretty useless, and just, I always try to stay away from saying cliche, because just because another film does it doesn't mean, just because they have similar plots doesn't mean it makes it bad. But the way they pull it off here, it just feels like it didn't need to be there. Like, it seems like there's a lot of things you cut out of this movie and replace with, character moments of Superman, because Superman, okay, Henry Cavill's, in my opinion, his portrayal of this character, putting aside my ideas of how Superman should be, but if we just look at it just plainly and see how he plays the character, or any character, I don't find that much interest in him. I think he's pretty boring and has no sense of charisma. I don't feel for this guy, and there's a few scenes where he emotes well, but it's usually just in really strong anguish. But other than that, I'm just like, he doesn't have wonderment. He doesn't like second guess himself. He just frequently just has a head furrow, or if he's flying, it looks like he's shitting himself, and it just feels weird and out of place. Just like Lois Lane, she really doesn't need to be in this, and I feel like the relationship between Superman and her is extremely undeveloped, and just seems like, well, we have to have it because that's how it is in the comics and other versions. There's also in the first act we go to near the Arctic. This is years after the spaceship landed on Earth. They said that it's been thousands of years, and this becomes the new Fortress of Solitude. And there's an AI hologram of Jor-El, the father of Superman, there. Okay, whatever. But we're introduced to Lois Lane by having a joke about her. She gets writer's block if she's not wearing a flat jacket. That she needs a tinkle, and then she goes out on a merry little way without any like harnesses, hooks. Just goes onto these icy mountains and has a Nikon camera. And I'm just thinking to myself, I love the first two, Superman movies. The one from '78 and the one from I believe it's 1980. I love those films, and I acknowledge that Lois does a lot of risky shit, and eventually has to be saved. But I feel like this takes the cake because she doesn't go with anybody. She doesn't have any ways to contact anybody. All she has is a fucking camera. Like they never show her like trying to contact anybody with like a cell phone or like some kind of communicator. She just has a camera. What was she expecting to do? And she's just, I know she's near a military base, but that might be a mile or two away because this ship is like on top of the mountain and shit. But she's attacked by this, by one of the like pin art pods that were on Krypton when Superman was being born as a baby. And for some reason, this one, it protects the ship with like a whip arm and just starts slapping her like she, is Indiana Jones. I'm like, I feel like I want to see his story. Well, its story. I don't know if it's a boy or a girl. It's a flying pro pin art thing. And when she puts in the MacGuffin, I'm sorry. When Superman puts in MacGuffin, he fought it first, then attacks her when she shows up, and then he just destroys it. And it almost seems like, well, that was entirely pointless. And they really just, as if it may not be bad for some fans like me that want a hopeful and charismatic and really actually heroic Superman. If that's not bad enough, we're given the prospect that there could be a Supergirl. They're like, oh, Supergirl, classic character, she's been around for many years. She's part of the Superman mythos. So we see a pod, we see like a few pods on the the lost ship that's been there for thousands of years and becomes the Fortress of Solitude. And what is the writers decide to do with her? Oh, she's a fucking corpse and just looks like she's been desalted of all moisture. She looks like a mummy. I'm just like, what the fuck? I mean, so you went out of the way to put an Easter egg for us fans, but you just shit on all of our dreams and just step on it. And through a lot of this movie, that's how I felt. I'm trying to be fair with this movie, but there's a lot of things that, if I would have had attachment to any of the characters, I would be rooting more. One of the things that this movie also doesn't understand is fucking geography. So, Smallville is in Kansas. Now, later we see that Superman takes on a job of having Deadliest Catch, on the waves trying to catch crabs, and he also saves the oil rig. People that are on the oil rig from dying and exploding. Then we get a transition to, I think it's a Pearl Jam song, and he steals people's clothes. Now, so was that scene just there to have a reason to show, like, ladies is burning abs, because later in the movie, Lois Lane is investigating, the Superman person, and she knows he has direct ties to the ship that was near the Arctic, and everything that happened with those jobs, those jobs he undertook, like, I think he also became a waiter and he destroys this guy's truck. A lot of people love that scene. I'm not the biggest fan of it. But so she talks to all the people that are in the same place as the jobs he took, and he looks at a bus and remembers the time he was at school. So you're like, okay. So this movie's telling us that in Kansas there is an ocean where there's oil rigs and people fishing for crabs. What? Oh my god. I never heard anyone complain about this, but as I'm watching this, I'm like, wait. Let me go back and, there's no information that suggests otherwise, that this is supposed to be taken to the place. It's supposed to take place in Kansas because everybody knows each other and everyone's close, and that's how she tracks them down. And I had to write a lot of notes for this, so I don't feel ashamed to have you see it from behind. Jonathan Kent, fuck that guy. I have no sympathy when he died. And he did it for a fucking dog. Fuck that dog. The dog can die. Why don't you be there for your fucking, alien son that you say, needs help and needs to understand why the world can't see him. If you're really on to that, why don't you not put yourself in such, a ridiculous peril that, that will be a trigger for him to do something. If you're just gonna fucking die and, you're not gonna be there for him. And you're gonna say, oh, maybe let the kids on the bus die. What the fuck? The one thing I kind of liked, but I wish, maybe it had more development, is Peter, who was the bully on the bus, who ended up sticking up for Superman, and then he starts working at an IHOP. It's cool, I guess, for him to have an arc, but the arc feels like it's missing a lot of pieces. Like, just because you have one scene where a character acts this way, and years later, you see him act very different, it's not necessarily about just seeing those two things. We like to see the journey. And nobody has a journey of their arc. Nobody rises and falls. Everything is just boop, boop. Same thing happens with Perry White. He says that he'll allow Lois Lane to do the story, and that's what he says last. But in the beginning, he says, I'm not going to do it because we don't need all this conspiracy nuts and people freaking out that there might be an alien. But in the next scene, he's like, oh, yeah, I'll let you do it. What? You were threatening to fire her and you're saying that you weren't going to print the story. I'm just like, that's very hackneyed explanation for why it happens. And tagging on Lois Lane onto Zod's ship, I don't fucking care. If she died, I wouldn't cry. I wouldn't. I was just like, oh, well, move on. Sometimes you lose a few, but what's really important? Making sure that the Earth isn't fucking terraformed. Which, oh my god, Zod. Now, one side, Zod has a lot of very entertaining moments. Not necessarily because they're good per se, but they are laughably amazing. Like, it kind of reminds me of when I watch Revenge of the Sith. Now, the most entertaining character from that movie is definitely the Emperor, but I can't necessarily say that it is great acting per se, but it is hilarious. Every time that Zod pops his eyes out and just starts freaking out, I can't help to laugh. And he's the only one that seems to be really having fun here. Everybody else feels very bogged down and just somber, but not for a real reason. And especially, I'm going to go back to right before Jonathan was killed by the tornado. The lines that Clark Kent says, he says, "Well, you're not my real dad, so I shouldn't care." I'm just like, that's so. Not only is it on the nose, but it is unbelievably intentionally trying to manipulate you, thinking that he has actually grown, but he hasn't. You might as well just have a separate person, but not have the reasoning or journey. It just feels lazy. And there's a lot of points in this story that feel lazy. Like, why the fuck would Zod try to terraform Earth? He says he wants to make a new Krypton, and for some reason, Jor-El put the special code of all of the genetics for every inhabitant of Krypton. Maybe some piece of the Kryptonians imprinted onto Subban, something encrypted. If you don't get that reference, watch the second Matrix. Horrible line, really hackneyed storytelling. Like a lot of people, so many people lack, real characterization or really any fun. Like, now, I can't say I hate anybody's performance. I don't like Henry Cavill's performance. I don't like Lois Lane's performance, but there are parts that are pretty good, and I can ironically enjoy General Zod. I can kind of get on the side of Diane Lane and Kevin Costner, but the story, I'm just like, I don't care. Like, I'm actually watching the movie and I start getting bored, and that's a big sin against the film. If you bore me and I don't care about the stakes at all, you should engross me into what's going on. Now, again, with Zod trying to terraform the Earth, why would he attack a place that has like all this military and waste all this time to get attacked and almost destroyed? And he knows that Superman is on this planet and probably has assload of powers. I'm like, that's fucking retarded. Why don't you go to a planet that has no, nothing that can attack you? Let's say if it just has plants, or it's just completely inhabited. That would be great. You wouldn't have to worry about, people like, oh, you're taking my home, you're destroying it. Just like, it doesn't make sense. And the fact that he says he feels bad about killing Jor-El because apparently at some point they were mates, it doesn't feel like there's any evidence to just suggest that. It just feels like, well, we're trying to shoehorn an arc that does not fit at all. And the whole thing about him rejecting the atmospherics, and General Zod can do it in just like a few minutes, even though it took him years, and for him to adapt to a different atmosphere, he bleeds. Even though he's fucking Superman, he doesn't need air, and he can breathe in outside of our atmosphere completely in the vacuum of space, and it doesn't affect him. That's either you do it or you don't. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Matter of fact, I'm more interested in the fucking polar bear that was on the Arctic than Superman in this movie. I'm like, that would be a good thing. Like, have the polar bear show up on the Fortress of Solitude, give him a super suit, and start your own version of the Super Pets. Just like something. I'm like, I don't care about really anybody, and I'm sad to say that. I wanted, when I went to see this, I had so much anticipation, and I wanted to love this movie. It doesn't. I don't think it stacks up to 1, 2, and Returns. I don't, because even though they may not always have the best action, but they do have is character and real emotion. This always feels tacked on, and this really hackneyed. And General Zod also shouldn't give Superman a very violent, sadistic way to destroy humanity if he wants to get on the other side. That's really weak. His destruction of Metropolis is unneeded and just fucking ridiculous. And I'm gonna talk about it. Superman snapping Zod's neck. Now, I can understand if this does not irritate you. I can understand it if you like the scene. I can understand if you just say, Eric, it's another interpretation. Lighten up. How personally, I love Superman. Not this one. Superman means something different to me. Superman is the beacon of hope, stands up for truth, justice, the American way. He's not a fucking murderer. And the right question isn't to say, well, what have you done? I'm not Superman, and I wouldn't write it that way. That was a bad call from the writers. They put that there just to have that manipulative motion. Just like, when they do something like really ridiculous with the lens flares or the zoom ins that make this movie really dated and not timeless. When they choose to be like, well, we're going to be different and we're going to kill General Zod, and you're going to see it. Like, even in Superman 2, we don't see the character being murdered. He's thrown away. Out of sight, out of mind. It's different than showing outright killing. And the only thing you need to do is go to the comics and find out how they dispatched him killing everybody. All you need to do is search. All you need to do is ask fans that love this character. But no, you just take ridiculous easy way out that some people are going to fall for, and then you just do the character wrong. Just absolutely fucking wrong. Once again, I can understand if you enjoy it. That's you. That's me. My opinion. I can still enjoy Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is one of my favorite superhero movies. I'm not hating this just because it's from DC. I fucking love Superman. But this is, in my opinion, this is not how you do him. And the fact that he frequently rejects being Superman just so we can have ridiculous Christ allegories is shoehorning, and it's lazy, and it's sad. But on the bright side, there are some moments that I do like in between characters. They're not that bad. Some of the action, it's pretty good. But overall, this movie bored me. Being a fan of, the actual character, it disgusts me in many ways. And the writing, sometimes it's just embarrassing. And that's why I give this movie a D. Yeah, I'm not going to mention Batman vs. Superman because I already talked about that. It's part of the Krypton critics. Tell me what you think. Keep in mind, you love this movie? Fine. You do you. I'm glad you're happy. It's part of the Krypton critics. Stay happy and be there for your fellow hero. By the Krypton critics, I love you.